Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of the Vinci Batfire build. In part 1 you saw the sort of fuselage sides being constructed and my thinking processes along the way. But part 2 sees the fuselage actually coming together and the formers going in and the top stringers going on. So let's get on with it. This is going to be epic. Cheers. I can either put the sides down like this, or I can glue these on at 90 degrees and then glue the other side on, because the central box is square. It doesn't curve at all, which makes it easy to put things down at 90 degrees. This is end grain, so we put lots on. Goes in there like that, flush with that. The other thing about these sockets is they've got a slight bevel at the bottom, so if you've got glue seeping out the bottom of what you're gluing, it doesn't stick to them because there's a bevel there. Just going to run some glue on there, drop it on, bit of weight, walk away, come back in a couple of hours or something. But when that's on there, I can bring the ends together, which I'll put over the plan view. So let's crack on. We got a bit of end grain here, so we need to. I've got a bit of a curve going on in there. Slight curve. It's not the end of the world, but it'd be nice if it didn't. I've got an idea. Watch this for an idea. If I put a peg on there, it'll hold it flat while it dries. Cliff, what's an excellent idea. How do you come up with these ideas? It's holding it nice and flat. That one's pretty close. So now I can put some glue on, drop it on there like that, put the square on it, make sure everything's as it should be, and let it set. Okay. Right, let's get that on and see what it's like. Square. Front's good. I do believe it's actually worked. Put a weight on it. There. 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 I'm going to just keep going around for a minute. Make sure everything is not moved. Okay, there we go. I'm happy with that. I'm going to let that set off and then come back in fullness of time. Okay, it's been a couple of hours, so let's have a look. Okay, let's have a look. We'll take those off. Okay, this is the moment of truth. If it doesn't lay flat when I lay it down, we're in trouble. Thank goodness for that. Thank goodness. Okay, there we are, the fuselage. Got to build the top half up now, and I'm still not decided if I'm going to make it sort of three-sided. Well, no, I'm not. The back's going to be stringed. I've decided about that. That's definitely going to happen. But the front half, not sure. Might make it rounded. I'm still not 100% certain I'm going to put the battery at the front, either at the bottom or the top. I'm not sure. Right, let's see how this fits. slightly too wide there, which is good. Oh, might be better if I put it the right way around. Back there. Oh, it's a snug fit, but it will go. I'd sooner it was a snug fit that I have to sand to make do. So what I'm going to do is to lay it down over the plan and just pull it in like that. Let's have a look at the F1. Going to pull in quite a lot, I think. Just wants to have the edges, not as much as you'd think, but just a little bit. Right, I've got to get this really firmly fixed because it's moving about too much. Isn't this just the best hobby? Like that. Push flat and get some pins in. I'm going to put some pins in the back here. And there. Okay, that's held quite well. That little rock tells me that it might be an idea to put a weight on there. The whole thing's flat. Now we've got to decide what I'm going to do up the front here. If I knew what I was doing with the top, I could cut that to the right size and fit that in, but there we are, it's holding. All I have to do is to glue it together, put it over the centre line, and it's got to be straight. That little piece together. Just like to say thank you to my channel members. It's your subscriptions that helps me to buy all this stuff and produce these videos, so thank you very much. Okay, there we have it. Next job is going to be really nice because I'm going to put in the stringers, which will give it a nice bit of shape. So you've got your little piece like that, and then we get a piece of gritty sort of sandpaper. That's quite nice. What's this? 80 grit. Let's try that. So we get a piece of sandpaper. We get our CA. Like that. And we just glue it onto the sandpaper. Like that. Hold it down. Second. Okay. This is where we blunt our knife off. So we cut down there. Very tight into the wood. You can feel it's slightly proud of the wood there. So I'm just going to take that off. Okay, and there is our file. Right, so now I can place that on there. Make sure it's centered on your line. And just file it down. Remembering to file it at a slight angle to pick up that. It just helps slightly. That will just slot in there like that. Like that. Cut it off there. That's the first one in, and then I'll do the other ones. I might use quarter by 8 balsa. Okay, so I'm going to glue these in. I think you'll agree it's going to look pretty smart with that and be very strong, but quite light. So there's the top half done that you can see. Oh no, I haven't put the top one in yet, have I? No, probably haven't. But that's what it's going to look like. And I'll just sand that smooth, take off any high stringers. The back's all on. I'm just going to trim these stringers to length. Okay, and I'll finish those off with a light sanding. So I've got to cut a triangle to sit in here, which is the tail plane support piece. I'll probably use 1/8 for that. And it's lovely that, isn't it? Sand the front edge here. Also sand this edge so as I can put on another piece of balsa on the front up to the height of that. Okay, so the tail plane will sit on there when I've got an 1/8 inch plate, and I'll cut a piece of a balsa, triangular shape, just shape it down till it sits in there a treat. I'm going to cut this curved shape out. Look at that, almost the same shape as diameter as that. Oh yes, I've got Jeff in Lower Alabama, Dad's RC hangar, and now I've got the Baron Flights, which is Nick. If you want to check out his channel, we'll have to cut this a little bit bigger and sand it, I think. So that forms a nice edge for the covering material to fit to. Right, moving on swiftly. Cut a piece of 1/8 balsa to go in here and get that glued in. The other thing I also have to think about is the tail skid mounting, which can glue on the bottom of here. In fact, if I make a slot in here, it can locate in the mounting and come straight back and sort of look something like that in 1/8 ply. I put a triangular piece in there, that's 1/8, and a piece of 1/4 in the bottom because that's got to take the stresses of the tail skid. The piece of balsa there is not the tail skid, of course, but it's merely making sure things line up. So that completes the back end. Now I can think about the front end. Just wanted to show you when you're making a former, don't throw away scrap bits of wood because you get a former out of that. Cost of balsa wood. It's really not a good idea to start cutting into new sheets when you've got perfectly good sheets here that will just glue together and make yourself a former like that. So it's only a former, doesn't need to be a perfect joint, although it is. Then I'm going to cut this one out. So, scrap bit of paper, glue tack it up, and then cut through it. Okay, a little bit there, like that. Okay, doke. So that's how you don't waste balsa wood. Right, so this is a few more formers glued in. I've got admission to make, guys. Made a bit of a boo-boo. Well done, Cliff. I was building it up to put a cockpit here, whereas in reality I offered the wing up and I thought, well, wait a minute, the cockpit's sort of where it is traditionally, but the cockpit should be here. I do like the cockpit back there, so I'm going to cut into this area and continue striggering this bit. So in a way it's not a bad thing because at least the line follows on lovely, but I've had to put a second former here to glue the top, or the rails onto, the stringers onto. So I put in this one, and I've also glued in the F1. That's epoxied in, and I face that off with a piece of balsa because it's easier to notch balsa than it is ply. So I'm going to put the top piece in. I'm going to use this piece of spruce, which is going to be there like that. I'll cut it to length in a minute. That can go in there, that can go down there. I've used spruce there because it's quite a like the spine of the plane, isn't it? So I'll mark the position of this and put that on. Then I thought I would use a piece of a solid balsa at the front to shape down. So I'll carry on with those stringers, guys, and I'll see you back when I've got something a little bit more interesting to show you. Cheers. Okay guys, just very quickly, I'm doing the last one, but I ran out of wood, so I've just scarfed together a couple of scrap bits. So a diagonal cut through both pieces at once, and then they'll be guaranteed to fit. So little tip for you, but I'm just fitting the very last. I think you'll agree it's looking pretty good. I'm just going to fit the last one now. This is one of those jobs that I just watch. I've just been watching videos while I do it, because I haven't been filming, so I've been watching videos. It's all good fun. And then lastly, this one up here, which is a bit of a, oh yeah, it's gone in all right. These are sort of tailored to fit, really. There we go. I'll let that one set, and then I can start sanding to get a nice contour. I see that this middle one's low a little bit. If I have to sand these down too much to bring it down to that height, it might be better if I just add a little bit on the top of there, a little bit of balsa, just to bring that up. Almost certainly will, actually. Here we are then, guys, using a combination of old school building techniques and a bit of imagination. Produce this beast. I've carefully sanded. I'll go over it yet again, but I've tried to blend each one into the next, taking into account where the covering's going to come. Right, the actual open cockpit is going to be back here. I don't know if you can see that, this shape here. So the only way I can replicate that is to let's see, I could go up. How far? I'm going to go just up to this first one. So I'm going to infill these areas here. I've got some reasonably soft 3/16 here. I don't know, it's not heavy, but it'll give me, it means I won't have to get it inset quite so much. I can sand it into a slight curve. Each piece is actually slightly tapered to the next, so it's not just a case of cutting a strip, but you've got to also cut a slight angle on each side. I'm showing you this first one, and then I'm going to switch the camera off. Okay, there's my first piece. So that's going to go in here, but it also has to be tapered down and away. I'll just give that a little. So I'm going to keep going until I've done all of this. That's very nearly there. It won't hurt to leave it proud, because I can sand it in flush to fit. So that's one. I won't glue it yet. I'm going to continue with the others first. There. Right, I'm going to continue with this, guys, and I'm going to come back to you when I've got something to show you. Cheers. And happy hour has gone by. Didn't take much wood in the end. So what I'm going to do now is to glue these in, and then when they're dry, I'm going to cut the shape out like that. Right, straight on, no messing. Just hold that on there a second while it sets off. Okay guys, exciting moment. I've sanded felt around as best I could, slightly threepenny bit shape here and there, but I haven't worried about sanding into there because it's coming out. So I've marked on a shape, which is about there. Okay, back to the knife. So I'm just going to keep knifing around here, sawing where I can, and I'll be back when it's done. Right, okay. I used a new hacksaw blade just to go around the corners a lot cleaner, so that's the tip. So all I've got to do now is just to tidy up these stringer ends, curve them in a bit. But otherwise, same with the back. Otherwise, that looks quite nice. Okay. That's as much as I can do there for the minute. So I finished sanding that, as you probably saw, but during today's live stream I've also done this. I've made the undercarriage landing block. I've glued it in. I've also glued in I've also drilled out for 2 wing mounting dowels, and that wing mounting dowel goes through a couple of pieces where you can see in there the depth of the mounting block, but I've also put in left a couple short in the middle so as I can thread the dowel through, and that's spaced off at the back with a bit of ply as well. So that will now come out so as I can cover it. It's a nice snug fit. Likewise with this one, I might as well take them out. I've had the wing on, it sits on really nicely indeed. So they're done. The other major piece of work to do, I've sanded F1 at the contour. The other major piece of work to do is make a hatch of some sort. Right guys, I've been dremeling, drilling, screwing, assembling, and that's what I've got. So that will go through there. I'll get a little bit of air in through there as well. There, see, and that will mount in there like that. Here we are guys, I've just made this hatch. Just tongues up behind here, and the magnets hold it down. That's the theory. And I'm just making some ventilation holes, stroke finger holes in the bottom. Looks really crude, but it does the job. These ventilation holes obviously will let lots of air in, hopefully. They'll also serve to help the ply to bend, and I get my fingers in just to pull it out, to slide it off the magnet. So it goes in there, clamps down, fingers in and out, put it back. Right, well, I'm happy with that. That looks pretty good. That'll let a bit of air in. The air will go in there, it'll come out here, and the middle front part of the wing isn't actually covered, because when I have it on the high wing, I've got the pilot in there, so I've got a great big hole here in the wing so it can come straight out. Put the push rods in. What I've done, I've put a little cross brace here just to take the end of the outer push rod outer, and that'll glue in there. That will run down the inside of the fuselage and come out to this piece of wood here, which I've fitted in. just in the right place for the control horn on the elevators, ruddervators in fact. So I've still got to cut the tail skid to slide in there, come out onto there, and I think that could well, now it's really coming on. Oh, I had an idea just now, I keep having ideas. This sort of an abrupt edge, maybe I could put a piece of balsa on there just to finish that off up to there. I was thinking of getting a spinner to go on the nose, something like 2.5 inch, be about right. I know it's a bit of a square nose, but yeah, I think that's okay actually. So all I need to do, I'm just going to pop outside into fresh air and I'm going to sand this to section, and that will be that. Okay, back in a minute. Still got to round it off, but I'll do all that, the final sanding. As I was saying, if I get a spinner, I'll want to maybe taper that into the spinner a little bit, so I've not tapered the front of that yet. There's one thing else I have to do actually, which might be easier to do before I put the push rods in, and that's a cockpit floor. The pilot will probably be a profile pilot, as is my usual style, so it doesn't need to be a cockpit floor going all the way down for a full-size pilot. I was playing yesterday evening actually with a piece of paper for a windshield, or maybe just a little square one. Haven't decided yet, but there we are. There's a little bit more done for the day. Cheers. Little bit of progress. Put in a cockpit floor, just a bit of scrap 1/8 I had. I paint all that black or something. I've just offered in just cut a 1/8 tail skid and offered it in. I'll glue that in after I've covered and finished it. That just pushes in, locks into a slot in the top there. The push rods I've glued in. I put a little put one there to take out the whip, and just a bit of cotton around the back edge there, CA, just to hold those two together, so they're in. And finally I bought a spinner and sort of rounded it. It's about as rounded as I'm prepared to go. There's not a lot of point in putting a fillet in the inside and rounding it even more, because that's actually quite a nice air intake all around there. I'll just round up the inside a bit where I'll put that pencil line, but apart from that, that's done. Looks okay. So that's the fuselage construction finished. I've yet to go over with a fine sandpaper just to tidy up all the edges and cut and fit cockpit glazing of some sort. I've brought up a couple of these stringers slightly, a little bit below, so I just stuck a little piece on the top and just feathered it in just to bring those up. That's just fine tuning, so it's ready for covering. Thanks for looking in. If you'd like to have a look at the membership button down below, it would be great, and memberships start from just £1 a month, so have a look at that. That really helps. It helps to buy balsa wood and covering. I think I've probably spent, and the motor of course, and servos are in, by the way. I think I've probably spent about 140, 150 quid so far, but it's worth it. This is worth it, just to see this beauty on that maiden flight. Open the throttle and we just see if she goes up. If she does, she's going to look fantastic. So next video is going to be covering and fitting the tail feathers on and bolting the undercarriage up and running it around the garden like we do. Anyway, first things first, next video is going to be covering, so I'll link to that at the end of the video when I've done it. Apart from that, thanks for watching. Cheers guys, bye.